Hello, मेरे प्यारे बच्चों, and welcome back. I know, exam time is almost here and the pressure is building up, है ना? But you know what? बिल्कुल चिंता मत करो. We are going to get through this chapter together and you're going to be absolutely ready. And hey, if this is your first time here, please subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our revision videos. Okay? Let's dive into this amazing story of courage.
So, where does this story begin? Well, it all starts with a huge dream. Just imagine this. A 37-year-old businessman, he decides he wants to do something incredible, sail all the way around the world, just like the famous Captain James Cook did centuries ago. And this was no sudden plan. He and his wife spent 16 long years getting ready for this journey. Talk about dedication.
And who's on this epic adventure? Well, first we have our narrator, the captain. Then we have his wife, Mary, and they have two lovely children, a 7-year-old daughter, Suzanne, and a 6-year-old son, Jonathan. Such a cute little family. And of course, we can't forget the most important member of the crew, their boat, the Wavewalker.
Now let's talk about this boat, the Wavewalker. This wasn't just any old boat, you know? It was a 23-meter, 30-ton masterpiece, professionally built. And they didn't just buy it and start sailing. No way. They spent months and months testing it in the absolute worst weather they could find. This is a very important point, but Joe, they were prepared. So the journey begins, and the first part, from England all the way to Cape Town, Africa, it was perfect. Absolutely smooth sailing. But they knew the easy part was over. Next up was the Southern Indian Ocean, which is famous for being one of the roughest seas in the entire world. So they were smart about it. They hired 2 extra crewmen, Larry and Herb, to help them through this dangerous stretch.
All right, so now we get to the part where this beautiful dream suddenly turns into a total nightmare. This is where the real adventure, the real test of survival begins. The sea, which was their friend so far, is about to show its true power. Just a couple of days after they leave Cape Town, the trouble starts. The waves, they start getting bigger. And I don't mean just a little bigger, I don't mean huge. They were 15 meters high. That's as tall as the boat's main mast. Just to give you an idea, that's like a 5-story building made of water coming right at you. Can you even imagine that? And then, on January 2nd, something really strange happens. The wind just stops. Everything becomes completely silent. Now, if you're out in the middle of the ocean, silence is not a good thing. The book calls it an ominous silence, a quiet that feels like a warning that something terrible is about to happen. You know, the calm before the storm, literally. Suddenly, a huge roar starts to build up behind them. The narrator turns around and he sees this. At first, he thinks it's just a dark cloud. But it wasn't a cloud. It was a wave. A monster of a wave, almost perfectly vertical, like a giant wall of water. It was twice as high as all the other waves. It was just terrifying. And then, bam, a massive explosion rocks the boat as the wave crashes down. Our narrator gets thrown around, and then he's washed completely overboard into the freezing, violent sea. For a second, he thinks, this is it, I'm gonna die. But guess what? His lifeline, his safety rope, it holds. Another wave tosses the boat back up, and he's thrown back onto the deck like a rag doll. He's badly hurt, but he's alive.
Okay, so he survived being thrown overboard. But now the real struggle begins. The wave is gone, but the fight for their lives is far from over. Their boat is smashed, it's filling up with water, and they have to do something. Fast. The situation was terrible. I mean, the deck was broken, a whole side of the boat was pushed inwards, water was just pouring in from everywhere. Inside, everything was just a mess. Clothes, maps, food cans, all floating in the water. And to make things even worse, the hand pumps they had were blocked, and the main electric pump had short-circuited. The Wavewalker was sinking, and it was sinking fast. But here's the amazing part. In all this chaos, the captain, he doesn't panic. And this is so important, Bacho. His presence of mind saved everyone. It's like your exams, right? If you panic, you forget everything. But if you stay calm, you can solve the problem. He quickly stretched some canvas over the big holes. And then he remembered they had a spare electric pump. He found it, connected it, and thank God it started working.
Okay, now we come to what I honestly feel is the most important and beautiful part of this entire chapter. While the adults were fighting so hard to save the boat, the real heroes were the children. Their bravery is something else, just unbelievable.
So, The captain goes to check on his kids. He sees his daughter, Sue, has this huge bump on her head. Her eye is so swollen she can barely see. And later, he finds out she also had a deep cut on her arm. When he asks her, "Sue, why didn't you tell me about all this?" she says these words. Just think about that. A 7-year-old girl in so much pain, but she was more worried about her father than herself. That's true courage, isn't it?
All right, bachon. Time for an important exam question. So listen carefully. A very common question from this chapter is, what was the difference in the way the adults and the children reacted to the danger? This question really checks if you've understood the main message of the story.
So here's a simple way to answer it. You can say that the adults, while they felt the stress, they felt the fear, which is natural, right? And they used their skills and strength to fight the problem. The children, on the other hand, were just the opposite. They were incredibly calm, they were selfless, and they became the source of moral support for the adults. Their positivity gave their parents the strength to carry on.
And then, Bacho, comes the line that gives this whole chapter its title. The 6-year-old son, Jonathan, he looks at his father and says this. When the captain heard those words from his little boy, something inside him changed. It gave him a new determination. He knew then that he had to fight the sea with everything he had. He had to do it for his family.
So with this new strength he got from his children's courage, the captain decides to make one final, desperate push for safety. The boat is barely holding together, but they now have hope. And hope is a very, very powerful thing. Let's see how they find their way. Now, their only hope for survival was to reach one of 2 tiny islands in the middle of this gigantic ocean. The narrator calls them pinpricks in the vast ocean. What a perfect description. It was like trying to find one tiny dot on a giant map. Their target was a small island, a French scientific base called Amsterdam. The problem was the captain's main compass was broken, and his charts were ruined. But he made some quick calculations based on wind and speed. He wasn't very sure of himself, but it was their only chance. He told Larry where to steer and then went to sleep, completely exhausted. And then, around 6 p.m., his kids will come up. They were hugging him and shouting that they could see the island. For most people, it was just a piece of volcanic rock. But for this family, at that moment, it was the most beautiful island in the world. They had made it. They were safe. Okay, so let's do a quick recap for your exam. What are the key themes from this chapter? First, courage, especially when you're facing death. Second, the power of optimism, of having a positive attitude. Third, the incredible strength of family bonds. And finally, the importance of teamwork and keeping a cool head when things get tough. Make sure to note these down. And that brings us to the end. You know, this is so much more than just an adventure story. It's really a lesson about life. All of us face our own storms, don't we? Like exam pressure or other difficult situations. So I want to leave you with a question to think about. What is it that gives you strength when you face your storms?
All the very best for your exams, my dear bacho. I know you are all going to do great. Just study hard and remember the lesson from this story. With courage, hope, and the people you love, you can get through anything. If you found this helpful, please do share it with your friends and subscribe for the next chapter revision. See you very soon.